Is on the side, by the way.
All right, we are live.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Atheist Republic Hangout. I'm Makisha. We've got some of our same old people hanging out here today, and we'll have people dropping in as we go along. I'm going to let everyone just introduce themselves before they talk as we go. And today we're going to talk about ghosts, the supernatural, the paranormal, aliens, conspiracy theories, all kinds of stuff like that. We're almost to October, so now's as good a time as any. And some of what we'll be talking about is people's thoughts about are these beliefs in any way consistent with atheism? Does that matter? Can we even say such a thing, that something is consistent or inconsistent with atheism? How do people reconcile their thoughts about those things with not having a belief in God? Is not believing in God the same as not believing in anything beyond what we can see? We did talk about, I think it was a little bit earlier on when we started the Hangouts, about paganism and atheism, and so some of that can maybe come into play again as well. This came up in our Facebook group with our team because somebody had mentioned that they know someone who was saying that they believe in ghosts, and we thought it would be an interesting thing to talk about and people's thoughts about it. So let's get started. Just maybe it might be helpful to define some terms. So we're just going to start off by talking about the belief in ghosts. And I guess I'm going to define ghosts as the energy or spirit of a person who has died. So if we don't believe in an afterlife, if we don't believe in any sort of divine, what do you guys think? Is it possible that something about us can live on and in some way communicate or manifest itself in the natural world after we have died?
No. Well, everything we know about our brain is that uh, our consciousness or our thoughts and our desires or everything comes the from our brain, and there's no evidence to suggest otherwise, and this assumption has never been contradicted with anything that uh, scientifically has been observed, and until somebody could demonstrate otherwise, there's no reason to um, to believe in anything else. Um, Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. Anybody that wants to claim otherwise has to be able to demonstrate why. So far, it seems like everything that comes from our mind is completely based on the material and natural phenomena that happens in our brain.
I also want to take the opportunity to let everyone know, if you're watching this live and you have comments or questions, you can tweet us, #Atheist Republic. You can leave a comment or question in our Facebook group. I'll pull that up. And so if you want to participate in that way, you are welcome to do so. Armin, are you raising?
I also want to add that this is, a lot of people that don't believe in ghosts and supernatural and are atheists, they say that if you do believe in ghosts or if you do believe in the supernatural, then you're not a true atheist. And I think that's a no true Scotsman fallacy. There's nothing within the definition of atheism that makes you not believe in ghosts. Atheism is nothing other than a lack of belief in God. It doesn't imply skepticism. It doesn't imply rationalism. It doesn't imply that you're more intelligent. Even if you came to the conclusion that you don't believe in God, based on irrational methods or fallacious arguments, you're still an atheist if you don't believe in God, even if you believe in loads of other irrational beliefs.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people seem to forget that there are people who come around to their atheism in ways that are not just because of pure rationalism. Or, for example, they might stop believing in God or gods, but not necessarily. It's not always because they've studied or because somebody has laid it out and they've come to see that it's not rational. There's a lot of atheists who are atheists for their own reasons. Some of them emotional, some of them experiential. There's all kinds of reasons why people don't believe in God, and so those types of people, of course, are there. There's other things that they might believe for other reasons that have nothing to do with skepticism or rationalism, or the things that I would say probably, I mean, statistically, most atheists probably value highly, and that's why it is surprising to a lot of atheists to hear that there are atheists who believe in certain things that we would call paranormal or supernatural or irrational or whatever. Did anyone else want to weigh in on the ghosts? Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to see, the way the concept of ghost is manifested or, circulated as a story is quite an entertaining one in lots of areas of the world. It's kind of, it's an entertainment. It's like a psychological, literary thing sometimes, but because it's not necessarily believing in God, because God is something that controls your life. He's got more power and everything. But the concept of ghost is personal. It's almost like, if somebody died, one person, then that person's ghost. So it's not, you can't have so many ghosts. It's just an observation on that sense. The other thing is, like the God thing, there is a body or lobby that benefits from the concept of God, but there is also a huge market, I think, at least in the Americas, who benefits from the concept of ghost, or at least dead people's return, like the whole medium and psyche business, which is a huge market apparently, and we do hear a lot of scam stories about it. So as long as you have somebody benefiting from someone else's gullibleness, then you would have somebody fanning it. That's what I thought initially I should say.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Arif. And I think also your comment about the difference between, because this has come up too, and maybe some people would like to weigh in on this. The difference between a supernatural deity and a supernatural entity like a ghost or a spirit, or something that, and I think from my perspective, the distinction is that the ghost used to be a natural person, and the deity isn't necessarily, but there are obviously deities in a lot of cultures that were actually people, and then we've got Jesus, who became supernatural. So it is. I can definitely see the argument that why people would say that they're incompatible. Does anybody else want to weigh in on ghosts? Philippe, we're talking about ghosts and paranormal and supernatural and things like that, and the compatibility with atheism. I know you always like to listen for a while before you weigh in, so I won't make you talk yet. So does anybody else want to weigh in now? Erasmo, we're just talking. Erasmo is asking what kind of to catch up. So we're talking about ghosts and and atheism, and maybe in particular you can talk about your experience with people you know who believe in ghosts. Do you know atheists who believe in ghosts? And we'll branch off into other superstitions and things from there. I mean, you said you had some more that you had.
I just want to say that this is something that skeptic movements point to why they don't like atheist movements. A lot of skeptics groups think that it's better to be involved in skepticism rather than atheists or anti-religion movements, because when they hang out with atheists, they notice that there are still a lot of atheists that do believe in conspiracies or weird stuff that has no evidence to support it. And the skeptic movements are like, why do we just have to focus on religion? We could focus on anything, all baseless, information out there, and just teach people how to focus on, believing in things only after they see evidence that supports it. And they say, like, I'd rather pick up my skepticism flag and rally around that rather than an atheist, like my atheism flag. But the thing is that that's a good point, but also it's misrepresent what atheist movements are about. I mean, I think at least the ones that I am associated with is the atheist rights movement is mostly, I think, about the rights of atheists. Just the same way that it makes sense for providing community and support and protecting the rights of any minority group or any even majority group, like protecting Christians against, in where they're minorities, protecting Muslims in countries where they are minorities, or any other, any other group that needs protection. Atheists are also very much discriminated against group of people, and also a group of people that would like to find each other and provide support for each other. So that's the main reason why we have atheist groups and communities. And I think when we do that, we would like to provide support and community to even atheists that we don't agree with, or even atheists that might have irrational beliefs. I don't think an atheist that has a rational belief, we shouldn't exclude them from support, if they're being discriminated against. If their atheism is causing them to suffer or be isolated or even being oppressed by their government or people around them, we don't be like, okay, you're an atheist, but you believe in, I don't know, UFOs or stuff, so you're not one of us. No, we try to reach out to all atheists if they need our support. So, I think the skeptics movement is a very important movement, and they do a great job at it. But, I think that, having this other movement that provides community and support to atheists is as equally important.
I think it's interesting too how quickly we go toward, as just people, human beings, as we go toward narrowing our particular group or our particular proclivities or whatever. Like we'll start off as being atheists, and then we fragment ourselves all out there, which is fine, but I don't think that we need to necessarily continue to narrow the definitions in order to support our particular bent. Like, if you want to be a skeptic and an atheist, then but I don't think it necessarily needs to narrow the definition of atheism just because, there's skepticism and there's humanism or whatever. So in order to validate your particular group, you don't have to narrow atheism. So that's one thing that I definitely, I have no idea. I don't believe in ghosts, but I would venture to say most of us here don't necessarily, because just because of our our skepticism primarily. But also, as I mentioned before, that just because somebody's an atheist doesn't mean they don't have all those. Plus, a lot of those superstitions and things are really deeply ingrained. Just like just like a belief in God, those beliefs are also very cultural. And you can't just stop believing, you know. I mean, if you have had an experience, I think people. So does anybody have any stories or of themselves or of other people who have been very convinced that they have seen a ghost or that they've had a dead relative visit them or talk to them or whatever?
Well, I don't think I've seen that detailed dead relatives because I wasn't expecting it, but I have seen ghosts. I can confirm when I wake up middle of the night, if I am, for example, sick or something, I will see certain part of my room is alive and it's moving around. But because I know too much about brain and how it works, I then later on realize that it's actually in the middle of waking up and processing what's happening and then rationalizing it. So I can't claim I have seen ghosts, but I haven't seen anybody actually per se that a shadow of somebody's, you know, soul moving around. No, I haven't seen.
That's another interesting distinction, is that I sometimes wonder if this is just another one of those things that we don't yet have the words or the explanation for, but we're all kind of talking about the same thing. Like you said, you know a lot about the way the brain works, so you have an explanation for it, whereas somebody who might not have an explanation, they just call it what culture has told them to call it. And so then obviously our brains are constantly trying to make connections and figure things out. We don't like our brain doesn't like things to not be figured out, and so it's going to land on the first thing that it has an explanation for, and we all grow up with those stories, and so that's the direction that I think a lot of people go, because that's the explanation that they have. That's the only information their brain has to draw from. But if provided the other information, you know, maybe it would go a different direction. Philippe.
Hello, all. Hope you hear me. Okay. Well, I had two experiences of that sort, but they were very distant in time. The first one is when I was a child. I was like 2 or 3 or something like that, and I clearly remember that I was talking to my brother, and I'm a single child, so I never had any brother, until I discovered that my mother nearly lost me, and we finally understood that she lost my twin. So I was the survivor. So sometimes you have those psychological intuition, and you know something, and the brain start to find a way to make you understand that something is happening. So it's subconscious, sometimes it's the dreams, sometimes it's everyone. But I was a very sensitive child, so I guess I guessed what happened, even if my mom wasn't aware of it, even not conscious of it, and I projected what I knew or understood at that time. So sometimes it can be only a psychological event. The second one, and I always had a very vivid imagination. So the first time I saw a movie with dead Walking Deads and things like that, I keep seeing them all around the house. It was just like they were there all the time. And vampires, same thing. I was always checking my bed and whatever. And it's just the difference. It's when you become a skeptic and you become an adult, you get rid of that, and you understand that sometimes you just project on yourself and you making up fears and things, and that's the syndrome of I'm gonna open the closet because I'm sure there's something there, or I'm sure there's nothing there, but in case I'm gonna check. And you open it and there is no light, and you're like, okay, it's empty, it's just brooms. And it's always very often working like this. But when you are a skeptic, you have conscience of those tricks of the mind on somebody who doesn't have the intellectual tools or the knowledge about that. they are fooling themselves, and their brain are fooling themselves. The second episode was I was 17, 18. I wrote about that. We were playing Ouija with some kind of friends, with a bunch of friends, and one of them was tricking us. He was pushing the Ouija, but we didn't get that he was pushing it on purpose. And so there were some messages arriving from a demon all around, and it was a very lonely, dark house in the middle of nowhere. And so look at the window, and I was just like, no, I'm not going to watch at this window because something terrible must be behind it. And at the end of the session, he told us and me, you believed in it? And I was just like, yeah, I was so scared. And he made me understand that he was cheating on me and that I've been fooled. And from this time, I became a super skeptic about everything. So, but you have to live that.
Sorry, I had a cough there. Didn't want to blow everybody's microphone out. Armin.
Yeah, it's interesting because when people tell me about these experiences, sometimes they are very certain about it, and they tell you exactly what they saw, and they are very certain about what they saw. And when you question that, they get very offended because they feel like they just saw something as clear as they are seeing you right now, and then you're telling them that you don't believe that, as if, and they will see that they will basically, if you don't believe it, basically you're saying that they're hallucinating, and they see it as you questioning their sanity. But the way that it's hard for me to explain this to them, because the way I try to explain them is that, well, what you're giving me is an anecdote. It's what you experience. Is hardly. I mean, no matter how certain you are about what you saw, first of all, I never experienced that, and even if I did experience that, I would go get myself checked. But the thing is that I would have to go with an anecdotal evidence versus something that has not been detected by all these scientists that out there that would, if they could prove something like that, they would just make their career. They will be rich, forever for the rest of their life. And they all out there trying to detect things, and they all have missed it. All the reporters in the world, that all the scientists in the world have missed something, and all of a sudden I have to go by this story that you're telling me versus the rest of the scientific community. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to withhold judgment until there's repeatable, testable, verifiable evidence for such a claim, and that's the only way to do it, especially when a claim. I mean, I'm not going to demand such evidence when you tell me that a restaurant that you went to has good food. It's not that important. I'm just going to trust you on that. But when there's a claim that's so fundamentally challenges the nature of our understanding about the fundamentals of our world and how everything works, then I tend to be a little more skeptical and demand a little bit stronger evidence, for me to completely change my worldview about everything. As it was Carl Sagan that said, extraordinary claims requires extraordinary evidence. And another thing that is very interesting is when atheists get surprised that there are other atheists that believe in this, then they get even surprised more, as I was, that it's actually quite common. For example, in the UK, I just recently realized that there are more people believe in ghosts there than they believe in God. So it's even in places where religion is not very common, superstition can still be very common. And like Makisha said, a lot of people might come to their atheistic viewpoints not because of rational reasons, or skepticism, but maybe because of emotional reasons. I even in Iran, where I lived most of my life, I know a lot of people that became atheists because they were disgusted with Islam. And even though that might be, you know, a valid way of looking at Islam, it's just their rejection of Islam and God and religion was just basically an emotional reaction to what they perceived as something that influenced their lives very negatively. And they had a point in that, but it wasn't because they thought that, you know, I should test the evidence for the existence of God, and therefore, and if I couldn't find any good evidence, that I should stop believing in it, or at least withhold judgment. It was basically this was a bad experience, then it must be not be true. But at the same time, would the question is that would that be bad? Like, if, you know, I know at least Casper is not here, he would argue that getting people away from religion by any means is good, even if it's not a rational way. You know, as long as they go away from religion, you achieve something positive. I question that, because if you don't have the fundamental tools to recognize bullshit from non-bullshit, then you might not be tricked by religion, but you're going to be tricked by the next con artist to get sucked into the next. You know, you might not be religious, but you might believe in homeopathy. You might not vaccinate your kids because you might think it's going to give them autism. So I think it's important not to just, you know, fight against religion, but give people the tools to recognize all BS from valid points. And that's where, you know, the skeptic movement come in, and I think the atheist movement can do a lot to support the skeptic movement, but at the same time focus on its core mission. But it is important to teach people, to arm them against everything that is made up without any solid evidence behind it.
Thanks, Armin. Erasmo had a story.
There. Well, this is a story that my father told me a few years ago. It was when he was around the same age that I was, around 20 something, 23 years old around. He was in his grandmother's house. He was a person a bit bold, rash, a bit cold to people, and he never had a word in his mind. But then, this is a short story. He just stood there for the night. Then he felt something. He woke up at the middle of the night, and he saw a gaping, mouth-open, ghostly figure in front of him, just as he woke up. The first reaction that he took, the first thing that he did was run away. He ran as fast as he could. Then, years later, he heard that under his bed there was a big bag of golden coins. So that's an interesting explanation of what caused that ghostly figure. Sometimes when you bury metals and precious metals, it sometimes manifests the reaction as a ghostly figure. I think that sometimes is the cause of the will-o-wisp. What I mean to say is that most ghost stories turn out to be just like the plot of any episode of Scooby-Doo's story mysteries. It's all mysterious, scary, and whatnot, but in the end, it turns out to be more simple than that. And I'm sure everybody here in the Hangouts have at least one scary story, but it turns out that another perspective is only a silly thing that just developed, and for the eyes of someone else, it turns out to be very scary. And that's the story ghostly related that I have to share.
Thanks, Erasmo. I think that is a good example of, and Armin mentioned this too, that when you question or try to provide maybe an alternative explanation for these things, people get very defensive generally. And I think, you know, the people who get defensive, they aren't really looking for an explanation necessarily. They already have an explanation in their mind that they are comfortable with, or that makes them feel something that outweighs the desire to have any other, maybe more rational explanation for it. And those stories are really powerful. And you know, I think everybody has one of those "my grandma told me" stories, or my mom told me, or my dad told me stories, or you know, my cousin said this one time. Those you know, we all have those stories that have been told to us, and those are powerful memories and powerful feelings of familial and tribal connectedness that are very difficult to shake even when people want to. One of the comments that was just tweeted to us is from Dr. Faye's Space, which I believe had a Dr. Spock on the user. So the idea of secular supernaturalism jives with atheism. Religion without a deity with a supernatural idea fits with atheism. Okay, there's the question for you guys. Is this any different? Is a belief in ghosts or a belief in some sort of supernatural a type of religion, or a type of God belief that would not be consistent with atheism? Or as this person put it, exactly. I'm not exactly sure if this person is asking us this question or if it's rhetorical, but I'm going to rephrase it. Does the idea of secular supernaturalism jive with atheism? Is religion without a deity with a supernatural idea, does that fit with atheism? Armin?
Yeah, the idea of atheism is only with regards to one question, and one question only: is there a God? And if you lack a belief, or do you believe in a God? And if you lack a belief in a God, then you are an atheist. Anything else other than that could, no matter how irrational or rational it is, or you could hold those views, and as long as you lack a belief in God, you are an atheist. This question would be basically the same as saying, would the idea of Ford being the best car company in the world, would that fit with atheism or not with atheism? They are so separate that, you know, they're not even. The reason why people might associate these with each other is because God is one superstition, one claim without evidence, but there are many other claims without evidence out there as well. God is the most popular and the most common one out there, but rejecting one idea that doesn't have any evidence to support it does not mean that one supports the person that rejects that idea necessarily rejects all ideas that don't have evidence to support it. And you know, it's important. I think this is very good to point out to, because too many atheists, I think, become too, you know, when you're supporting atheism, it doesn't mean that you have to support all atheists. You should never overgeneralize and go and say atheists are smarter, or atheists are more moral, atheists are more skeptical. You could support atheism, but be careful about overgeneralizing an entire group of people together. You know, we could go. You know, it's true if we say atheism doesn't make you less moral or less logical, but you know, when it comes to individuals, don't overgeneralize and say it makes you more moral or more logical. You could support the idea and say why I support atheism and why I don't think there's any evidence for the existence of God, but don't don't support a person just because they're atheists, or don't support a community of people simply because they share a view with you. I mean, you could support them if they're being oppressed or discriminated against. That's different, something else. But don't misrepresent or overgeneralize their views. We have even homophobic atheists. We have racist atheists. We have many different kinds of atheists. And for a lot of people, this seems very inconsistent with atheism based on their experience, but it's within Atheist Republic, the reason why we don't ban these people or we don't remove them from our community is because they serve a purpose, because other atheists need to see that they exist. So it's educational for them to not go around and make statements like that and overgeneralize their own community.
There's a lot of atheists I know who very strongly believe in homeopathy or alternative medicine, who don't vaccinate their kids because they believe it's going to cause autism. There's all kinds of, and if we really believe that the supernatural, or that God is an idea and a superstition and holds no more power than what culture gives it, then really it should be on the same plane as other irrational beliefs that are held just as strongly and have essentially the same amount of power in a lot of ways. And so it's interesting to me that those things aren't, that one will kick you out, will take away your atheism card, but the other one is just silly and okay. One is giving kids polio, and the other is making people pay a palm reader. I mean, so it's interesting that we're really grumpy atheists about things like believing in fortune tellers, but the anti-vaxxing atheists are annoying and piss us off, but we're not going to take away their atheism card because of that. So that, I think that's an interesting phenomenon just within atheism. I think is interesting to observe. Erasmo and then Philippe.
Okay. Regarding the question that the supernatural belief of ghosts and whatnot should be considered as a religion itself without God, my heart says no, but my brain says I don't know, because that's what I think a difficult answer, a difficult question to begin with, since ghost is a manifestation. Well, according to me, what I think ghosts are is just a manifestation, the residue, what's left of a person, the print that they marked as an echo, and thus they are able to make an impact on people. They can leave a recording, an audio recording on walls, and all the things that you can find or see in all the supernatural crappy shows that exist in either YouTube or sci-fi. But what I mean to say is that since it is a difficult question, I think there is no right answer as to whether a person can consider a belief of ghosts a sort of religion. We don't go pray to ghosts. Well, I don't. Christians do. I don't. But it's just that I don't think that it is the same as going every Sunday or every Wednesday or every Monday or any other day of the week to go and leave a tribute, to leave some sort of 575 organized rhymes for some person that just magically died or that just magically appeared in a piece of toast. I don't think that ghosts can be considered as a supernatural belief, because the print, the reaction that is left in all of us is very different. Some people are very cold and indifferent, and they just don't care. And regarding the chat, the side chat of the group, someone said that I have seen ghosts. Quote, I have seen ghosts, but then I realized that my brain is in the middle of being online or on offline. That just happened to me. When sometimes I wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning and I see some shady figures coming to me, but I'm just too sleepy to care, and I just go back to sleep. And some people react differently, and like Armin and you said, it's just there are different people out there, different kinds of atheists. Atheists that care that ghosts exist, atheists that don't care, like me, that ghosts exist. Sometimes I'm in a house all alone, and boom, close out of nowhere. My reaction is to open them again. Just I don't think seriously within my heart that I should consider the belief of ghosts as a supernatural belief, because I don't know. I just think that may exist, but that's it. That should be the answer that I can give. And here's a quote that I like very much. I don't believe in ghosts, but they are scary.
I like that too, actually. It's really good. And says a lot, really. One of, let's see, what was I'm sorry, I'm reading a lot of things at one time here. There was a quote posted in our sidebar chat. It's longer, but I'm going to read the shorter bit from Tim Minchin, which is that throughout history, every mystery ever solved has turned out to be not magic. And before that, he talks about Scooby-Doo and stuff, which is actually really good. And so we'll put the whole bit on down below if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're not, go ahead and go back to YouTube. We'll put it in the.
If I can add a little bit about that Tim Minchin thing, this is a really nice song that he wrote. It's about a discussion he was doing with a seemingly skeptic-looking chick called Storm, and it's a really nice whole long, it's quite entertaining. I think you should just connect the whole one. So the way he was singing it, it's like throughout history, every mystery ever solved has turned out to be not magic. And I didn't do it enough good, but you should go and listen to it. It's really funny. He's really good, great guy.
Yeah, we'll put the whole lyrics and then we'll link. I'm sure there's a YouTube of it or an official video of it or something around. So we'll link through to that as well. He's got a lot of good stuff, so he's worth mentioning for sure. And Philippe, go ahead.
So, a lot of things. Well, I love to mention, obviously, as a musician and as an author and as an atheist and as super skeptic, I really love the guy, and he's really funny. We had a chat. Yeah. Okay. So about this discussion between the link between religion and ghosts, and may ghosts be something that could exist with atheism? Obviously, for me, no. Why? Because this idea of dead people visiting us, because that's the definition of ghost, is a link, direct link, with this idea that the survival of the soul, that something remains after we're dead, other than our body. So this is linked to religion, to this hope of an afterlife, a hope that something survives the death of the body, and that's religious. So believing in ghosts, even if you say I'm an atheist, is a cultural residue of religion. If you say you're an atheist, you say, I don't believe in that birdy, gazy guy in the sky, etc., but I believe in ghosts, then you are a victim of your cultural surrounding and you don't even understand it. And about the distinction between being a skeptic and being an atheist, there is people who are atheists. They don't buy in this story of Adam and Eve and the resurrection and etc., etc., without having the intellectual tools or any reasonable reason, I would say. They just sense that it's bullshit. They sense it. They don't know why, but just like somebody is telling you a lie and you're like, I don't buy it. You don't know why, but you know that something's wrong. So you can be an atheist without being a skeptic. On the other hand, very often when you are a skeptic, you become an atheist because you start to question everything, and that's the very thing that religion doesn't like. It's question things and question reality and question what you've been told. So if you put somebody in a haunted house without telling the person that the house is haunted, the night is going to pass like nothing. But if you say to someone there is a ghost and etc., perhaps you're going to learn, and you put somebody in a house, whatever the house, and by preparing his mind to something might happen, well, obviously during the night the person is going to wake up screaming like, there's a ghost, there's a ghost. So no, well, that was just some ideas. And well, atheists comes in very different form, because the only thing that we have in common is this rejection of the idea of God. That's it. That's our only major link. After that, we come from very different from, just like gay people. You can be a homo and be from the right wing or the left wing. You can be a racist. You can be whatever and still be gay. You can be an intellectual or just a hairdresser. You're still a gay guy or a gay woman. That's you come in every different shape. So yeah, atheist comes in very different intellectual shapes. Some of us are very skeptics, and some of us are still gullible on some topics. That's it.
Thanks, Philippe. And then a lot of people just don't care. They just don't want. It's too, it's they'll just say I don't care. This is my experience, and I don't need to investigate it. I don't need to be skeptical about it. It's what I experienced. I had whatever, it made me feel whatever, and that's that. And I would guess that there's a lot of people who are like that. We hear from the people who care. Those are the people that go into chat groups and Facebook and write blogs. Those are the people who, the people who do those things. They want to dig more. They want to either be skeptical or discuss all of these things. That's important to them. But there's all the other people that we don't hear from, who probably have all kinds of beliefs about all kinds of things. And one thing that I wanted to ask, and then we'll go to a couple other people, but I wanted to ask about the distinction between religion and God or deity, because this is something that's come up before with things like Buddhism. There are some Eastern religions and some older religions that do not necessarily have a God, and they might be considered superstitious. They might be considered, whatever. But they're not. There is no God. There is not necessarily a worship of a person. A lot of the things that we talk about ghosts actually remind me of things like saints or some of the old religions that actually just recognize that their ancestors are still present amongst them in spirit form, things like that. So, the question, the Twitter question was specifically, I believe, mentioned religion, and so I guess my question is religion, and can you be religious and not necessarily believe in God? Can you be a religious atheist? Because those sort of labels and terms, I think, end up getting us hung up. So that's a question to maybe Molan, because we had our mull over. We had Arif and then Armin.
Yes, hi. I'm just gonna start with the last comment you just made about what happens people when die. I think this whole concept of soul and people lingering even after death is a very old one, and I think it was invented when somebody didn't want to let their loved one go, and this whole thing came about. So it's to do with people trying to hold on to their loved ones, probably. But on the one I was going to actually comment on is how people actually come to what makes the difference between somebody who believes in supernatural stuff and somebody who doesn't. For example, myself, I don't have any belief on any of these things because I try to make sense of the world around me, and if I can't make sense of it around me, I just tell myself that I don't have enough data with me to make that sense. So it has to be, based on scientific reasoning thinking. So if somebody says that I have seen a ghost, I would question the condition that they were when they literally saw, because human sensory organs are not perfect, and it's actually then interpreted by their brain, which then gets registered in their memory. So there are so many layers of imperfection that can eventually make them have this permanent knowledge that they have seen a ghost. So as I said, when I was waking up before in the middle of the night, I do see things, but then what does that seeing actually mean? Is that my eyes are making sense of very half-lit room, and then my brain is interpreting it, but that brain is not actually functioning at the time. So all these things has to come into some sort of a logical conclusion that then I'm seeing a ghost. And as a general people and atheists, I don't think atheists should be, if you can't believe in God, then there should not be anything else that you should be then thinking of believing if they don't actually make sense to you. So we have to ask why you can't, but that's obviously then becomes a wide spectrum discussion. So end of the day, I think you have to make sense of what you are actually trying to understand based on scientific ways of thinking. That's what I just wanted to add.
Thanks, Arif. Philippe.
Sorry. But it was Armin before, no? No.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, probably.
I think so.
Do you have anything to say, Philippe?
Let Armin.
Philippe, go ahead. Armin wants you to go.
Okay. So yeah, this link between religion and superstition and the survival of the soul, and what Arif just said about what happens in the brain is very interesting, because when you know that those scientific experiments, when you provoke an epilepsy seizure to normal people, and they come back with visions like, I have seen Virgin Mary. I'm sure of that. I've seen her. I could touch her and say that she was real. And then you do that with a Muslim guy, you've seen Muhammad, and you go to a Buddhist guy, and he's going to see his cultural embodiment of perfection. It's always the same thing. They are just brain failures, like the grass would say, and it's basically, for me, it's just that, and the fact that you have to question everything, and the first thing you have to question is what you are sure of, because your senses tell you so. And that's the first rule. So we have so many flaws with our senses that we can't trust them. That's for sure. And that's the first thing. Well, just like St. Thomas, put the finger in the wound to be sure it's there.
Armin.
Yeah, first, before I wanted to ask you all a question, but before I do that, I just wanted to respond to Erasmus. He mentioned that it may be true, we don't know. The thing is that the number of things that may be true is unlimited. And because there's unlimited number of things that could be true, without any evidence to support each one of them, the possibility of each one of them is very close to zero unless you have something that supports it. So, you know, saying something may be true is not that much of a support. I mean, I could, you know, maybe Santa Claus is real, maybe Peter Pan is real, maybe the Tooth, you know, Fairy is real. But I'm gonna assume that I'm gonna withhold belief in each one of these claims until there's, you know, there's a reason to do otherwise. I had also a question to all of you. So this is a stone that my mom paid a lot of money for, and it has some, I don't know if you can see, some Quranic writings on it, and she got this from me. I saw the way around. And it's interesting because she got this when she wasn't even very Muslim, right? But still, even though non-religious people think in Iran sometimes think that this could do a lot, she got this for me to protect me and to bring me luck in my life, and she made me promise her to keep this with me. And you know, I had a lot of conversations with my mom regarding superstition and these things. And one thing she told me was, you know, not these things, they might not be true, and you know, probably they're not true, but it makes me feel better. It makes me feel like I can do something. It makes me feel that I've done something to protect you, you know, to change things that I have no control over changing. So why don't you just let me have that? You know, and that's it's a good point, but at the same time, she could afford this stone, right? What if somebody spent their entire life savings on this stone, right? What if somebody didn't, you know, didn't spend on medical, you know, treatments and went with something that was more harmful or not beneficial? What, you know, so you know, I could relate to that message where, you know, if somebody's feeling good, even if it's fake, why can't you just let them have it? How would you respond to something like that?
Great question. Anybody have any thoughts? How do you respond?
I was in, I think you're talking about placebo, right? That treatments that don't really make any real change, but fools the brain of the patient to heal itself. Then maybe there is some benefits to placebo apparently, but I think you can't call it a science or any kind of medicine. Um, I think Armin made a small point which I want to kind of relate to something happened recently. When you believe in something and you waste a lot of money and effort into that belief, like recently this guy, Bangladeshi guy, who has spent his entire life in Saudi Arabia working because he couldn't afford anything else. His wife was all 20 years living in Bangladesh, and he saved enough money to bring his wife to Saudi Arabia so that they could go together to Hajj. And within few, I think 1 or 2 days, he lost his wife in the stampede. He's still living, and that made me really sad. That how somebody's belief can waste his whole life, and he wasted his whole savings into this, and then he lost his wife, you know, trying to do something that is not actually tangible. I don't know if I answered or, but I'll let others.
That is sad. Although, you know, I guess protecting people from doing stuff that is sad is not necessarily our job, but Anybody else have any response to Armin's question? How do you respond when people say, why can't you just let me have this? Why you gotta ruin everything for me? Philippe.
Yeah, it's. I had quite the same thing with. I was asking somebody about his belief in God, and he was saying, what do I lose when I do that? It's kind of the same question. It's if it makes me feel good. Yeah, but for a short moment, because your cancer is not going to heal with a bath of tea and some I don't know, imposition of stones or whatever natural medicine as you call it, and it's everything. I think everything has to do with I'm still on this idea about what Armin said about what Casper would say. The fact that Casper would say, if you get rid of religion, you get rid of the superstition. And I agree with him, because it's a very bad habit that we have. Religion tend to push superstition because it works like this. You know, there is this new chamber in the Catholic Church. They are hiring priests to retrain priests to do exorcisms. I mean, it's crazy what we know about that, and they are short of priests able to exercise an exorcism. That is just crazy, and they need, because there is more and more possession cases, and we all know that it's hysteric or some epilepsy or whatever, and it's medical. It has nothing to do with a demonic possession or whatever thing of that sort. But how is it possible to get the religion rid of that when I've been to Lourdes? I don't know if you know that city. It's a place in France where the Virgin Mary appeared, and there is this cave, and people go there to be bathed in the holy water, whatever. And okay, so you just can't believe it. I went there. I mean, it's just Disneyland, but with Jesus and Marie. There is statues with lights and whatever, and saying ding dong call. It's absolutely crazy. And there is some distributors of holy metals and holy water. I don't know if you can grab this idea that you have metal cases and people are putting like 10 euros to get a little bottle saying it's holy water because it's been, you know, all the gestures and the Latin words, and there it goes. That's the same water. You're protected. And same thing with golden medals that you wear, and it costs like 25 euros, and people are just like pushing the money to get that in order to have what we were talking about. This idea of protection, this idea of the feeling that everything is going to be okay now. And it's how do we fight this? Because that's are the tenets of religion. You are not well and you need us to be cured. So it's the sin at first, but after there's all the traps because the devil is over there and you need protection against the devils and temptations and whatever.
I think for me, we actually have really good neuroscience that and it's continuing to go about how we actually can manipulate our own brains to work on our behalf. I don't think manipulating our biological systems to be better is a bad thing, but we know of ways to do that are secular methods. We know of things that we can do to make our brains work for us, to give us more positivity, more energy, a better outlook on life, whatever. We do have that. That does exist. We have that. That's essentially it functions similarly to a belief in God, to prayer, to things like that. So I guess to me, I would say, you know, so why are they different? And I guess to that I would say because our beliefs matter. What people believe matter, because what people believe end up affecting how they vote. It ends up affecting what they teach their children, how their kids grow up. It ends up affecting the curriculum we put into our schools. Our beliefs do matter. It's not just your individual belief in one particular thing. And if it were that simple, then no, I wouldn't care. And ultimately, when I'm sitting down with a friend, I'm not going to sit there and argue about their experience with a ghost. I might ask some questions, but I'm probably not going to sit there and try to convince them out of that belief. But I do believe that beliefs matter, and it affects us all. It's how the Inquisitions and the witch burning and all of the things that we, I think, can agree we don't want to see in our society. It's how those things happen, because people believe, and they believe strongly enough to want it to affect everybody else. And they should. If they believe it strongly, then they should want it to affect everybody else. Otherwise, it's not a very strong belief. So that's why it does matter. It takes people's money. It takes people's hope. It manipulates them. It almost always affects the most vulnerable of our population, who don't have other people standing up for them and protecting them. And so for me, that's why it's something that I can't necessarily just let go. Although, if we want to say what would Casper say, I'm definitely not. I'm not Casper, but I do. You know, even for me, it definitely it matters. Now, how we go about that, I'm not going to question your atheism on it. But how we go about that is up to us, you know, personally, and what our personalities are like. So that was my big long rant about it all. It's after 10. We're after the hour, so I don't want to take the last bit of air out of the room. So if somebody has something else to say, please raise a hand or chime in. Armin, did you have something? Was that a nope? That was a go. Okay. All right. So thanks everybody for joining us today. This has been an interesting conversation. There are a couple people I wish were able to join us, but we had some of our team out at a conference, and we've actually, I think, 3 of our team who wanted to be here out at conferences. So they weren't able to be here today. But thanks to our panel, thanks to everybody who's watching, and if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. Share it. We have lots more on our channel. You can visit atheistrepublic.com for more information about us. If you would like to volunteer or give a financial donation, that's available on our website as well. Please leave your comments and thoughts right down here below, or you can email us or comment through our website. We have Facebook, we have forums, we have local flesh and blood brick and mortar communities, all kinds of ways to get involved. So check that out. We appreciate everybody who participates and our hundreds of volunteers at this point. So join us again next week. We'll have something else interesting to talk about, hopefully. And same time, same place. See you again.